welcome all the participants who have logged in. Thank you for keeping time. This webinar, as you saw in your invitation, is hosted by OAL, that is Olisa Agbakoba Law, and the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping. We are here. Sorry about the network, it keeps going in and out. Mr. Andy Siche is the president of the Chamber of Shipping. I'm coordinating. I work with the Chamber of Shipping right now as a consultant, but we are bringing this in conjunction with law. I want to start off by introducing the lead speaker. He will tell you what this is all about, and he will give you a brief concept of the limitation of liability. But before I go into that, I would like to also introduce our panelists who are going to give expert injections into what this whole program is about. I don't think, I know Captain Iheanacho is here. You all know Captain Iheanacho. Captain, can you wave so they can know who you are? Can you just wave?
Hello.
Like this? Let's see you.
Good morning. How are you?
That's Captain Iheanacho. He's going to give expert input as well. We have Mr. Temi Omasheye. Can you wave, Temi, so that everyone can know you're here? That's Temi Omasheye. He also is going to give his expert input. He's a ship owner. He's very well versed. Both of them, Captain Iheanacho is very well versed in shipping. Temi Omasheye even used to be the DG of NIMAS at one time. I have Mr. Olisa Agbakoba. Can you wave, sir, please? He's the host. He's co-hosting with us. His chamber is there. You can see we have him there as the co-host with us. So, can you unmute and start, please? Thank you. You're still muted, Wale. Can you?
Yeah, it's unmuted now. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Kerele. I'm actually glad to be here this morning to give a brief elucidation on the concept of Shipowners Maritime Misadventure. Now, an exhaustive exposition on the concept of limitation of liability. Rather, what the discourse would do is to give a general insight into the concept and to enlighten ship owners' business activities. So what I would do now, on my screen, I have some sense. Can we all see my slides? Can we all see my slides? Very well. So I'll proceed now to give the exposition, though somewhat brief, on the concept of liability limitation in respect of shipowners' maritime misadventure. By way of an introduction, the legal position is that when damages have been occasioned by a wrongdoing, compensation should be in full for the aggrieved party or the innocent victim. Concept of clock a shipowner and its representatives with immunity from full exposure to the ruinous damages flowing from their marine adventure. Now, marine adventure in this respect should be considered not just in respect of the sea leg of the voyage, but applies wholly to. So shipowners are allowed to limit their liability for a various number of claims for cargo loss, loss of life, claims arising from hazardous and noxious substances, and general contractual and delictual claims. However, while the rights of limitation available to a shipowner is actually something that has been entrenched in the maritime commerce, it's surprising that a number of Nigerian shipowners are not aware of this privilege. available to them. And even in the situation that are aware of it, they don't really know how it operates. So what I would do in the course of this presentation is to elucidate on these areas. Now, moving on to the origin. The origin of the concept of limiting a shipowner's liability is actually unclear. However, the earliest evidence appears to have been traced to the 14th century. It's been said by certain authors that the concept came about from Roman law, and that in the course of this, that it trickled down to the English system and the French. However, whatever may be the origin of the concept of liability limitation, the fact remains that it is a rule of public policy, which has its origin in history and justification in convenience. And we can see this in the case of the Bramley Law, whereby the jurist was expatiating that the concept originated as a result of trying to limit the liability that shipowners were exposed to. Back then, in the past, what happened was that shipowners were actually not enjoying the same corporate structures as we have in contemporary times. Back then, shipowners were above personal liability for everything that they were engaged in, and it was felt then that it was in a matter of public policy to try to limit their liability so as to encourage maritime commerce. So we can imagine that all shipowners have to bear full liability for their activities. A lot of shipowners will be discouraged from going into the business. Now, what are the international conventions that have given this rights to limit to shipowners? So we'll start with the International Convention on the Division of Liability in 1924. Now, this convention was an international adoption of the English Merchant Shipping Act of 1894. What happened previously was that a lot of countries had now enacted various laws seeking to protect their ship owners from full exposure to liability. So what the convention tried to do, the 1924 convention, was to harmonize these various national laws. And the convention provided for limitation of liability upon the fact that the ship owner would only be able to enjoy the right if it was not guilty of fault or privity. However, the convention was not successful as it did not go far in harmonizing international law in the area. As a result, the CMI, that's Comité Maritime International, took steps to review the convention, which gave rise to the 1970 Brussels Convention of 1957. Now, the Brussels Convention went far to apply not only to ship owners, but to also extend the rights to charterers, to the master, to the manager, operators of the ship, and members of crew. So a lot of aggrieved parties were actually going against the employees of the ship owner, knowing that ship owner was actually enjoying the rights of limitation of liability. So what the convention did was to extend this right to employees of the ship owner, such that aggrieved victims will not be able to circumvent the convention, because if a ship owner's employee was found liable for the wrongdoing by virtue of the principle of vicarious liability, the ship owner would definitely become liable. The convention increased the limits of liability from what's obtained in the 1924 Convention, and actually extended to claims of property damage, loss of life, and personal injury, and also created a larger fund for distribution amongst victims of the loss. However, the problem with the convention of the Brussels Convention was that the unit of account, that was the point care franc, was actually susceptible to fluctuations. So as a result, it became unpopular. Besides, there was also appreciable difficulty for ship owners in actually enjoying the limit of liability, as we shall see in the course of this presentation. This was because it was the convention was still premised upon actual fault or privity, which would exclude the ship owner from enjoying the right of limitation if it could be shown that the ship owner had actual fault or privity in the wrongdoing. As a result, there was clamor for a revision which now led to the 1976 LLMC. Now, the 1976 LLMC actually created a limitation fund that was quite higher than what obtained in the 1957 Brussels Convention. The method for calculating the unit of account was a special drawing right, which was actually as in a move away from the point care gold franc as obtained in the 1957 Brussels Convention. Now, unlike the 1957 Brussels Convention, the notion of liability under the 76 LLMC actually applied to all claims, irrespective of the basis of liability. By Article 2, the claims covered under the LLMC were loss of life, personal damage to property, wreck removal claims, cargo removal, delay in carriage of goods. And by Article 3, the LLMC would, however, not apply to claims for salvage, claims for pollution, as covered under the CLC conventions, which we shall see subsequently, and also for nuclear damage. Now, another convention which also protects ship owners and gives them the right to limit liability is the 1992 CLC. That is the Civil Liability Conventions 1992 and the Fund Convention. Now, the first major oil tanker disaster of Torrey Canyon actually triggered the need to introduce measures for compensating oil pollution victims. So what happened was that previously, there was no convention covering claims arising from oil pollution damage, and also covering and also giving ship owners the right to limit liability. However, there was the advent of the 1969 CLC, which was the first convention that came into force to actually limit the liability of ship owners in respect of oil pollution damage. One thing about 1969 CLC is that it applies to only oil tankers. So every other form of watercraft are excluded apart from oil tankers. Now, the International Convention of, as in the Fund Convention, that's the International Convention on Establishment of a International Fund for Compensation for Oil Pollution Damage, tried to provide more compensation for this. However, there was clamor for higher liability limits. This was because oil pollution damages could give rise to monumental claims. And it was felt that there was a need to increase the liability limits for ship owners so that there'll be a larger fund. So this gives rise to the 1992 protocol, also known as the 1992 CLC, and the Fund Convention as second tier. Now, by virtue of the 1992 CLC, a ship owner is entitled to limit his liability by calculating the limitation fund by using the special drawing rights as a unit of account. Now, what happened is that by virtue of the fact that the 1992 CLC was not enough in covering for pollution claims, the Fund Convention had to come into play. Now, the Fund Convention is actually an intergovernmental measure comprising of oil majors in importing countries. So importing countries of oil and the oil majors actually came around to finance the Fund Convention. So you have the first tier, 1992 CLC, which provided the first round of compensation, and the Fund Convention acting as the second round of compensation. In other words, if, for instance, a ship owner could not avail itself of limiting liability under the 1992 CLC, it would mean that the Fund Convention would act as a buffer. And this could arise, for instance, whereby the ship owner has failed to pay his calls as into his P&I club, which actually insures for the 1992 CLC. So the Fund Convention acts as a second tier compensation level for, as in oil pollution damages. Now, looking at the Bunkers Convention 2001, I mentioned earlier that the 1992 CLC deals with only oil tankers. However, nothing was made available for those cases whereby there was pollution from vessels that were not oil tankers. We're all aware that a lot of vessels can actually, as the modern day vessels, can carry as a lot of bunkers, also known as fuel, as within their hold. And this could also lead to pollution damage, whereby, for instance, the vessel breaks its back. So what happened was the advent of the Bunkers Convention 2001 to actually cater for those scenarios whereby there was oil pollution from a vessel that was not an oil tanker. So by Article 9A of the convention, oil pollution damage occasioned by the escape of bunkers is covered under the convention. The convention applies to all types of watercraft apart from oil tankers. And the ship owner will not be liable for oil pollution damage if it arises that such a wrongdoing came about from acts of war or of God, natural phenomenon, or malicious intent from a third party, or negligence by a government or other authority responsible for maintaining navigational aids. Now, this is a very, very tricky provision because it means that if a ship owner has actually if a ship owner's vessel is actually responsible for oil pollution, that ship owner would not be liable if that ship owner, if he can show that it was not his fault. In other words, it was an act of God or act of war. Now, the problem with this provision is that oil pollution victims would probably go away uncompensated, which creates a very difficult position. Now, what's the position under Nigerian law? Now, the Merchant Shipping Act 2007 provides express provisions in respect of ship owners limiting their liability in Nigeria. Section 351 to 353 of the MS 2007 actually provides for a ship owner's right of liability limitation in Nigeria. And it also means that the ship owner, under the provisions, means the owner, the charterer, manager, and operator of the ship, very similar to the 1976 LLMC. Now, notably, a marine insurer is entitled to the benefits of limiting in the same extent as the ship owner. This is very, very important for marine insurance as marine insurance want to know the extent of the financial exposure when covering a risk. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind is that by invoking the right to limit liability, this does not amount to an admission. It doesn't mean that when a ship owner has invoked his right to limit liability, that this means that the ship owner is actually admitting that it is guilty of the wrongdoing. What the ship owner is basically trying to do is to say that in the event that the aggrieved parties' claims become successful, the fund that has been limited or that's been created is what the aggrieved party will be able to have access to in actually satisfying the claim. Now, the method for calculating the mutual fund under the Merchant Shipping Act is that the same thing that obtains in the 76 LLMC, which is special drawing rights of the IMF. Now, the claims in respect of which a shipowner in Nigeria can actually limit liability are set out in section 3521 of the MS 2007. And these are claims in respect of loss of life, personal injury, claims in respect of loss resulting from delaying the carriage by sea of passengers of their luggage, claims in respect of the removal, destruction, or arrangement of cargo of the ship, claims of the shipper and of a person and the person liable in respect of measures. Now, claims in respect of floating platforms definitely used by oil and gas companies, and then claims in respect of removal, destruction of wreck. Now, the MSA is now the shipowner's right to limit liability is not applicable in respect of these other claims: claims for salvage or contribution general average, claims for oil pollution damage, claims subject to international convention or legislation, as in for nuclear damage, and claims by servants of the ship owner for remuneration. So what the MSA is trying to do, especially as regards the last claim, is that it's trying to protect crew members and ship owners' employees from having their claims limited for having rendered service to the ship owner's vessel. And what are the exceptions? Now, the ship owner's right to limit liability is not at large. There are certain exceptions that could be exploited by the aggrieved victim to render the ship owner liable. And we have different exceptions under the different conventions. Under the International Brussels Convention, the exception to the shipowner being able to limit liability is if the aggrieved victim is able to show that the claim resulted from the actual fault or privity of the owner. In other words, if the victim can show that the shipowner was guilty of actual fault or privity in respect of the wrongdoing, then the shipowner would lose his right to limit liability. Now, the primary right to limit liability is definitely affected by the causative actual fault or privity. So, one leading case in respect of this is the Leonard Carrying Company versus Asiatic Petroleum Company, whereby the directors of the shipowning entity sent out circulars to their employees, but failed to advise them on the need for strict compliance. Upon the wrongdoing by the shipowner's vessel, the company was found guilty of actual fault or privity. And why? Because debtors were regarded as directing minds of the company, who ought to have exercised the powers in ensuring that their employees complied with their own safety rules. And as a result, the shipowner was unable to limit liability and bore full exposure to the claims. Another case is the Norman, whereby the employee of the shipowner actually ran into an uncharted rock, despite the fact that the ship owning entity had actually made it known to the master of the ship that there was an uncharted rock in the waters. Unfortunately, they failed to inform the master who ran into the rock to remind him actually that of this position, and the shipowning entity was found guilty of actual fault or privity. So what we can see from these two cases is that it is possible under the Brussels Convention 1957 for the shipowner to lose right to limit liability, whereby there is an error from the directing minds of the company, that is the directors. It is also possible for a shipowner to lose the right to limit liability where the employees of the shipowner failed to comply with regulations set down as in by their corporate hierarchy. So it means that on one side, there's possibility of breaking the shipowner's right to limit liability from the management position and also from the position of directors of the company. And we also see other cases, the Marion and the Lady Gwendoline. Now, the summary of this is that the Brussels Convention was very, very, very unpalatable for shipowners. It meant that a lot of activities could actually lead to full exposure as soon as the aggrieved victim could show that the directing minds of the company or those down in the lower management were actually guilty or culpable in certain errors made by the company.
Sorry, Wale, you have 2 minutes left, 2 minutes.
Very well. I'm nearly done. So now the exceptions under the 76 LLMC and the other conventions, Bunkers Convention, X2 CLC, and the Fund Convention have now given the shipowner a stronger immunity from liability. What they've done, what the conventions have actually done is to move away from the actual fault of privity exception to loss resulting from personal act or omission committed with a cause to cause such loss recklessly and with the knowledge that such laws will probably result. Now, this is a very, very difficult provision to break. This is a very, very difficult immunity to break. This is because it's actually subjective in nature, and it will be for the aggrieved victim to actually prove that the shipowner set out to cause the wrongdoing. That is not easy to prove. So the effect is that under the other conventions, aside from the Brussels Convention, now has a stronger immunity from liability, though conditional and not full immunity. Relevant in my case, no nation can afford to raise a liability ceiling or abrogate limitation entirely because of the disadvantage that it creates to aggrieved victims. One could argue that there is no reason why shipowners should continue to enjoy this right. But there are lots of reasons for this. It's because insurance is a core factor that has a direct connection to liability limitation. Insurance companies want to know the extent of their full exposure when covering a risk, and liability limitation helps them to do this. It also goes a long way to determine the premiums that ship owners would pay. If ship owners cannot limit their liability, it will mean that there'll be higher freight rates. Because now, if they're going to bear full exposure, for instance, for carrying oil, then it will mean that the owners of the cargo would have to go a very long way in providing as a lot of money as freight. Furthermore, the ship owner would have also structured his capital expenditure, vessel maintenance, and every other thing it does in the course of his business around the maximum liabilities it would attract in the course of any disaster. So this goes a long way to provide some level of certainty as regards what the exposure would be. A lot of people would argue against this, that after all, other businesses don't enjoy this right to limit, but it does. But the proper argument for this would be that maritime commerce is a vital business in international business, as in international commerce, and it should be given encouragement to ensure that a lot of ship owning entities do not move away from that commerce. Now, upon the same estimates, the ship owner will also be able to properly pay for the rates for marine insurance cover.
Well, 2 minutes is up, Paul.
Thank you very much. I'm done with it.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let that screen go. Thank you very much, Wale. This is quite an eye-opener. It's obvious that ship owners, apart from building capacity, there's a lot of things we have to learn. Captain, I'm sure, Captain Temi, you ship owners. Oh, welcome, Dr. Mark George Oyong. That is our president of Ship Owners Association. I know a lot of your members have linked up. I can see my president, Mr. Andy Siche. Welcome, President Andy Siche. We were waiting for you, but we went straight into the historical aspect of what we're talking about. So can you do just a 5-minute welcome? Because Mr. Agbakoba is going to give a practical input later, and the ship owners is going to talk very soon. So could you just give us a good welcome and show them your new Chamber of Shipping? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, gentlemen and lady. Let me start by, apologizing for coming in a bit late. Having said that, I'd like to congratulate Olisa Agbakoba Legal for this initiative of enlightenment, initiative of advocacy, because learning is key for everyone, particularly the businessman. For the few minutes I've listened, clearly I've learned about the need to limit liability. And I've also come to see that even as a business owner, when you take the initiative to call the attention of your staff to certain danger and impediments on the way, you might still end up being liable. Based on the example Dr. Oluwole gave now, about the uncharted course, how the master went, and the business owner is being told, oh, he needed to remind the man. These are the things we learn to, know how to reinforce liabilities, contingent liabilities to our staff, knowing that there might be no way to hide. Having said that, I'd like to mention that most of us know the Nigerian Chamber of Shipping. We are an advocacy platform made up of operators in the maritime and shipping industry. We have ship owners, terminal operators, admiralty lawyers, insurance banks who are into maritime. It is a microcosm of the industry. Our objective, major objective, is advocacy, drive policy, bring changes to the industry, ensure the interests of our members are protected, ensure the enforcement of local content, and so on and so forth. Beside that, we're also into training, capacity building. I'm sure most of us know our flagship ABC of shipping, which we are improving every day to train people. We have a lot of people who have graduated from that course who are in the industry. That is how we improve capacity. Beyond training, we have also decided to join hands with people who want to progress Nigeria in dealing with a major issue, and that is the seafarers training. We've been able to work out arrangements with a reputable university in the United Kingdom that is into training. We've signed an MOU with them so that we can also support, the efforts of NIMASA in training our seafarers. But beyond training, providing them sea time experience so that they will learn by doing and do what? At least build up young seafarers. Most of our experienced seafarers are aging. We've decided to take up that challenge, to provide them platform for training. The Nigerian Chamber of Shipping also believe that the only way we can be stronger and bring value to Nigeria is to, be members of global associations that regulate the shipping business, shipping and maritime business. And in the last 2 years ago, we were able to process our membership of the International Chamber of Shipping. And indeed, I'm sure you'll be glad to hear that Nigeria is the only African country in that association. Though Liberia is a member, but we all know that all activities about Liberia shipping is being run out of New York. So indeed, we are the first. We've also gone ahead to see how we can galvanize and bring shippers, operators in the West African sub-region to come together, that is private operators, come together to address issues that affect us. What are the things that are inhibiting business, shipping within us, amongst us? How do we deal with environmental challenges, pollution, piracy? We have such bodies, but all at governmental levels, MOCA, Abuja MOU, and so on and so forth. We've decided to bring those in the field, operators, to come together so that we can have an equivalent platform to engage the government agencies. That, we believe, will expedite the improvement of shipping in the industry. Well, our CROC, Mrs. Akerele, talked about the new improved chamber. Yes, we just had a change of guard, and our former DG, Mrs. Akerele, is currently helping as part of the restructuring committee to build a new structure. Hopefully soon, a new DG will come on board, and after 1 month of transition, she'll step aside to be by the side. It's our intention that our re-energized secretariat will effectively engage members so that we'll begin to have our usual breakfast meetings, evening meeting, evening outings for our members evening, where we invite experienced practitioners, professionals to talk to us. I recall that our member, governing member and big brother, Captain Emmanuel Ihanacho, once came to talk to us. We had the privilege of listening to him when he was in charge of the Federal Ministry of Internal Affairs. Captain, I'm glad to see you again, and thanks for all you've done for us in the past. We've not really been in touch, but our new energized chamber will really come back to us. Mr. Temison, it's my pleasure to see you once again. I'm a member of your committee, the Master Committee. I don't know the fate of that committee, but it's glad to see you. Our iconic, indefatigable legal luminary, the great Olisa Agbakoba, who has refused to take chieftaincy titles. I thank you for this initiative and for the legacy you are leaving. Most of us here do not know that you once aspired to lead Nigeria. In fact, we can call you an ex-presidential aspirant. It's sad that Nigeria does not use its best. But I'm happy that you have not rested on your oars and you are still contributing to the development of Nigeria through this means. My friend and brother, Tony Cole, just came. It's my pleasure also to welcome you. We see often on online meetings and webinar sessions. Thanks for always sacrificing to give your time to the development of the industry. So it's my pleasure to be with you.
You have forgotten Dr. Young.
I've not the great president of the Shipowners Association. This is all about your business. So I'm not therefore surprised that you are here. I also thank you for coming in, because by doing so, you are encouraging all of us and the organizers. And I believe that you have a lot. Having listened briefly to Dr. Akinyeye, you have a lot to take back to your people for the benefit of the industry. Thank you very much. Ify, you are doing a good job with your timekeeping. Thank you. So it's my pleasure. We'll come back to everybody here. Captain, we'll come back to you. Please open your doors when we come back, because we need your experience. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, my president. Mr. Tony Cole just joined us, and Dr. George Oyong. These are the other panelists. Mr. Cole, you are a panelist. Unfortunately, I gave them the wrong email address. The fault is mine. It's only now that I realize that I just to you, you get them. But when I send, you don't, which means I've been using the wrong address. So
You're muted, Ify, you're muted, we can't hear you. You are muted.
this will give you an opportunity at least to speak for us. So we're going to kick off now. All panelists have 5 minutes, and I mean 5 minutes. I might be partial to some of you. But I'm going to give you a chance to speak. I'm going to call on the actual head that wears the crown now, which is Dr. George Oyong. He is the president of Shipowners Association of Nigeria, and it's a very strong body that's fighting tooth and nail to take possession of what is theirs within our local capacity. Dr. Oyong, can you just make 5 minutes input? If you can make it 5 minutes, I'll be very grateful. But if you start going a bit over, I'll rudely interrupt, but in a nice way. I welcome Dr. George Oyong to speak to us on his own input with regards to Dr. Wale's paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, ladies and gentlemen. The Nigerian Chamber of Shipping is doing a great job, trying to galvanize interest and participation and advocacy in this business, which is everybody's business. Shipping, like is 90% of global trade. And when the president, Nigerian Chamber of Shipping, was saying in your business. I actually say it is everybody's business, because without shipping, there is no oil trading. Without shipping, there is no shopping. Without shipping, there is no life, I would say, because health will not work without shipping. And I want to congratulate. I came back, apologize for also logging in late due to email discrepancies. However, he has done a very great job. I tried to look into this topic, myself, and I found that this is very is invaluable to ship owners, because most of us, I mean, don't forget, being a ship owner is not being a rocket scientist. If you have basic knowledge or adequate knowledge of the business, you can actually own a ship. It's just like owning an aircraft. But when you go into this Mami Water business, you must also ensure that you understand some of the rules. So this has really enlightened us because, again, I personally understand the limitation in the sense that even when I was in fishing business, and I had my shrimps damaged when I shipped them to Las Palmas on Maersk Line, we were able to get into this limitation in the sense that Maersk Line played up the limitation, the liability, the limitation in liability, to be able to protect themselves. I didn't realize it then, but it has become much more useful right now. It is also necessary in the sense that when calculating, most of the time we ship owners, we look at our freight, we look at our income, and we forget to make provision for certain things. Certain things like dry docking, for instance. You're supposed to, on a monthly basis in your operation, keep money for dry docking when it comes, not when dry docking comes, you begin to run helter-skelter. The same thing, this maximum liability that is payable is supposed to be worked out in your operation so that you keep that maximum liability in case you have a misadventure. So this has become also very, very useful in this respect. Again, I want to say that yes, there's so many things that have come up here, and it is very, very important that we also look at the regulatory part of it, in the sense that everybody has a responsibility. I mean, removal of wrecks, if the wrecks that are there in our waters, of course, NIMASA has a role to play there. And if there are some information about certain dangers that we are not knowledgeable about, this is food for thought for the regulatory bodies as well. I don't want to exceed my time. I want to say that there are some gurus who are in this panel who will be able to, send heavier punches than what I have done. On this note, I want to thank the organizers again and say that this is a very beneficial platform in the sense that Olisa Agbakoba, the godfather of maritime business, is giving us a very, very good opportunity. And I'm sure that all our members who are listening out there will be able to take good advantage of it. SWAN, the Ship Owners Association of Nigeria, continues to be continues to strive to take leadership in ensuring that shipping is developed in Nigeria, so that we will be able to be among other nations that actually benefit from shipping, not a nation that is just providing services for shipping for our ports, and we are just providing the enabling field, and we are not players. So on this note, I want to thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young. I also want to thank you for the input you've been making with your activities with the Chamber, because we really want to bring the Chamber back to where it is, which is expanding information to our community. That's the maritime community. Thank you very much for that input, because you spoke like the leader you are. I'm going to ask Captain Iheanacho, who is the president of the chamber, forgot to mention that Captain Iheanacho is one of the foundation members of the Chamber of Shipping, and they fought the good fight and are still fighting the good fight. Are we winning the battle? Well, we can measure that on a scale, but he was definitely one of the people behind cabotage, etc., led by Dr. Olisa Agbakoba. So, Captain, can you please give us some more insight to what Dr. Wallace spoke about, and also add to what the president of SOAN just spoke about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope, are you guys hearing me at all? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can
yes,
hear.
I can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Good
Although your
morning,
voice is a bit soft. Bring it up. It sounds like a lady's voice.
The captain is doing the pillow talk this morning.
So anyway, it's a great pleasure and an honor to be here. Let me start off by thanking Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, my very good friend, forever cerebral. If you really wanted industry, Olisa Agbakoba would very easily be that person. The work that he has done, both as a lawyer and just as a general advocate of growth and development in the maritime industry. So I recognize Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, and I thank him also for taking it upon himself to organize this very timely webinar. We have listened to Dr. Oluwole Adeyeye giving an expose on the topic of discussion today. I would like to also congratulate him for a very good presentation that he has given. He's told us the historical basis for the limitation of liability laws. He has indeed then come down to look at the various conventions that have been promulgated over time to make sure that all these things that are reserved in national laws are carried across national borders and are internationally implemented. He has then also brought us down to the provisions of the law with respect to the Nigerian shipping, acts. And I don't think that I want to go through it one by one. He's done a very good job. He's a lawyer, and that's what he has done. For those of us who are practitioners in the industry, if we really are in a jam, and if we have any difficulties and we want to know how to limit our liability, it is very easy now. Either you come to Olisa Agbakoba's chambers and he'll point you in the direction of the office of Dr. Wale, and Dr. Wale will whip out his books and tell you exactly what you have to do. So I thank all of these people. Ify, I would like to take the opportunity indeed to thank you for the pioneering work that you have done for so many years. Wanted to model it after the British Chambers of Shipping. And I was thinking, would there be enough material for this lady to work? Sorry, a call came in there and I had to deal with that call. So Ify, we really thank you for the pioneering work that you had done in developing the chambers. When I listened to Andy speaking a short while ago, and he gave a very good resume of all the different things that you guys are thinking of doing in the industry, I know that you have absolutely done a wonderful job. Thank you very much. Let me also take the opportunity to thank Andy Siche. He is the current president or chairman of the chambers. He is doing a wonderful job. The chambers is in very good hands. Dr. Masheye, you are there, former DG Nimasa. I'd like to recognize and thank you. My friend, Dr. Mark George Oyong, you are doing a wonderful job looking after SWAN, and SWAN looking after its members. Now, we are here to talk about limitations of liabilities in maritime misadventures. I was doing a bit of research, really, not to sound very ignorant in the course of this webinar. And I wanted to find out exactly when this concept became generally adopted. I think it is something that had existed for centuries. But when you really want to know at what point in history this was codified, I think my research pointed out that it happened in the reign of King Louis XIV of France in the 17th century, and precisely in the year 1681. We know Hugo Grotius, the father of international law. He defended the concept of limitation of liability as a public policy, which recognizes the fact that without ships, international trade just would not progress. And so if you had a situation where people who are operating ships were operating under the fear that something would happen and that they would become bankrupt, then of course, to the world, this whole concept has grown. It really arose at a time when the insurance industry was at its infancy. But thankfully, over the years, the concept of insurance and all the different variants of policies that insurers have brought forward has made it easy for people to undertake these adventures. If anything happens, you are not afraid that your ship is going to be taken. You are not afraid that somebody's head is going to be put on the chopping block. There are provisions which limit the liability that you are exposed to. So I don't think that I would go into the details of this subject matter, and I would just recommend that anybody who wants to read about it should contact Dr. Oluwole, and he could show you a text that you could read to become more familiar with it. I'd like to thank everyone who's been here, to say that I enjoyed being here. For years, I was there leading an organization like Dr. Mark George or Young. We talked about cabotage historically. If you touched upon it, Olisa was there leading, and I was there. There's quite a few of us, and eventually cabotage was promulgated as a law. Unfortunately, it hasn't had the effect that we expected it to have. But of course, we still have life, and once it's life, I would like to yield the floor to the next speaker. And if we encounter any personal experiences that people have had that might require our intervention to either explain or to further the understanding, I will be there. I thank you very much, Ify. I thank you, everyone who's at this seminar. Thank you, Olisa Agbakoba, for organizing it. Great man. Thank you. If it doesn't seem as if you are hearing me because you're just still sitting there. Hello. Hello, Ify, can you hear me now?
I think she's having internet challenges.
She's dropped off. She's dropped off.
Yeah. All right, so I thank you all. Andy, by the way, Tony Cole, I forgot to mention your name. I'd really like to recognize you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, Andy, if he has dropped us, okay.
Captain.
Well, listen, I think you would have to moderate for now.
Ify, are you back?
No, she's off.
So as Ify is off and wanting to come back on, then maybe I should invite Temi to make his own short 5. I will follow Ify's rule of strict 5 minutes. And after that, then we'll invite Tonya Cole. And then I will just do a brief practical presentation. In my 43 years as a mayor, found very few limitation cases. And so the essence of all this is to then interrogate why is it that ship owners aren't taking advantage of, maybe it's because of insurance, as Captain Hancho highlighted, but I thought that the limitation principles were such that ship owners would like to, take advantage. But when I looked through the laws, I could barely find 5 cases in 50 years, which shows there's a big, knowledge gap. So, Temi.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank Ify and the Chambers of Shipping for giving me this opportunity to also come and be a panelist on this meeting of limitations of shipowners liability. First of all, I have to pay homage to homage is due. First of all, to my, I don't know, I'm so confused because one is on my right, one is on my left. Captain Nacho is on my left, and my senior brother Olisa Agbakoba is on my right. I don't know who to greet first, but I'll greet 2 of you together because both of you are my mentors in this industry. one on the legal side and the other one on the practical side. And you know, thank God that my good old captain is not battle weary yet. He's retired, but very much not very tired at all. And I see my brother Antonia. Nice to see you again, my brother, and Andy and the rest. And Dr. Onyon, nice to see you, my senior bros again. Well, very quickly, Dr. Oluwole, I like what your comments and your presentation, which was, I believe, very, with all due respect. I mean, I'm also a maritime lawyer. I have an LLM in maritime law, but you know, we have the law in our head, but we have not practiced it like you guys who are making all the money from it. But we'll leave it at that for now. Yes, your presentation was very much covered a lot of the conventions, which was very, very key. The issue of the CLC and all the other conventions. Fortunately, I have the hat of being not only an administrator, a maritime lawyer, but also been an operator. So I do have a bit of understanding of all the three aspects of things. And what I want to talk a bit more about is how have ship owners themselves over time been able to get away? Because when the senior advocate talked about we don't have so many cases, how has that come about? And really, it's quite simple because we have what we call in the ship industry the blue cards, which is the CLC. Let me just read it very quickly, which is the CLC cards issued by the PNI, the UK PNI. Now, without the CLC cards, the CLC actually is an insurance that covers your liabilities as it relates to oil pollution. So traditionally, the association, that is the UK PNI, has provided blue cards addressed to a ship's flag state, confirming that a ship owner, okay, has in place insurance cover to cover CLC liabilities. On presentation of a blue card to a flag state registry, an owner receives a CLC certificate, which he's required to retain on board and which he may be required to present on entering the waters of a state's party to the CLC to demonstrate that he has in place insurance to cover claims for oil pollution up to a certain limit determined by the tonnage of the vessel itself. Now, that basically effectively is what many of us are required to do as a ship owner, because we cannot even be registered right now without the blue card. So if you want to go and register your vessel right now with a NIMASA right now, without a blue card cover from PNI, you cannot. So when you find out about limitations, so many of the liabilities of a ship owner is covered under that. So of course you can expand that to the limit you want if you feel that you have negligence. But one issue we did not raise here, which I would maybe hopefully the senior advocate might look at that issue, the issue of liability. We're having some challenges as it relates to fake certificates in the industry. Now, we have a lot of captains or crewmen who are on board. Now, what are the limitations of liability as it relates to the negligence of a ship owner who is not properly certified? Where are they covered by the issue of the insurance? Or would that blame be placed on the ship owner for employing that person, or would that fall on the maritime administrator? Because really and truly, we do have a challenge in Nigeria as it relates to the issue of the certification of our seafarers, because we are finding that many of them are not coming out with proper certificates. So we need to know that very clearly, because that is a major issue. Because running a vessel myself, I found out that quite some of my captains, on further interrogation, the certificates were wrong. So I was wondering why they kept on running aground. But it was later on we found out that the guys had issue with their certificates. So that is a major problem which an agency like NIMASA needs to deal with. Now, another issue where you might think, how are the ship owners internationally sidestepping this? Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I read my maritime law over 30 years ago, so I'm not wrong. But I know that maritime law is an action in rem. And am I correct? Please nod your head if I'm correct, please. Oluwole and so by virtue of that, what normally happens is that
and also in personam. In rem and in personam, two of them.
Is rem and in persona, yes. So now what now happens basically is this. So the rule basically says that if, for instance, I own a ship, I own like 10 or 15 vessels, and one of my vessels has an issue or collides and does something else, which means they can attach all my other sister vessels. That's, if I'm correct, that's the way the rule goes. Now, how has ship owners been able to circumvent this? And I'll very share with you, what they do is very simple. A ship owner can get 100 vessels and has 100 companies. Each vessel stands on one company. Now, whether he sells the company with the vessels, but so if any issues that comes up relating to that vessel is detained, and the other sister vessels, which he says is not my company, are all attached. So that is another way. I'm trying to look at it in the way how are ship owners themselves, even though we have these conventions, how are ship owners been able to limit their own liability by using legal means to they're not circumventing. Whatever they're doing is definitely very legal. So I always tell Nigerian ship owners, and which is what I told the banks. I say, you guys are killing us in Nigeria. You tell us to come with one company. You buy one ship, you buy 5 ships, and all the ships are under one company. When one ship has a problem, we cannot limit the liability to not affect the other vessels. What really should happen is that each vessel should stand alone as a corporate entity, which is what is happening worldwide. And we have not started practicing that kind of thing in Nigeria, whether it's by the law or by virtue of we're not introducing enough of the international best maritime practices in Nigeria. So really and truly, that is really what I wanted to talk about. And I mean, I don't need to talk for 5 minutes. Issues, understanding of that. So that's why I am. Thank you very much.
Is it if it's still a large?
If we can't hear you, if you need to unmute. Oh, she's we're losing her.
Hello.
I think
Can we make comments? Can we make comments, or do we have to wait until the presentations are finished before we can comment on anybody's presentation? Hello. Hello, I wanted to ask a follow-up question, but anyway, we are waiting to be guided by Dr. Agbakoba. Okay.
Captain, I think Dr. Agbakoba said you can go ahead with your question.
If he's talking, or if he's talking.
Toye, please come on, and his own injection, and then Agbakoba, and then the floor is open. I'm also appealing to participants to send in their questions, because those will be answered by whichever panelist you're directing it to. But I'm calling on Mr. Toye Cole to please come in with his own input. Thank you, Toye.
Okay. So thank you, Ify, and well done for just fighting this battle and carrying the chambers as you have done. To my president, Andy, thank you. I have so many senior bonds and big men on this panel. I feel almost like a stranger inside here. My big guy, thank you very much for all you've done. I know how you've guided us from when we were very small boys starting in the business. You're already a titan there. And the advice that you gave us so many years ago, thank you very much. My brother Olisa, nice to see you again. It's been a while. Olisa, what can I say? You've just been a titan, and you've pushed this whole business, especially on the legal end, when no one knew anything about maritime law. You've already been pushing this, and you've been a guide to us. So I just want to thank you. And also my brother, Dr. Oyong, I still remember when we were on, I can't remember what the vessel that we hired many years ago, one of your very first ones.
Amorex.
So we thank God for that. First of all, my sincere apologies for coming late. If he has already explained, and so Dr. King, I missed your paper, and I'm really sorry about that. But having said that, I hope that I've picked up already through what the panelists have been saying where we are, and I just hope that my little contribution will go a long way. And so there are two things that come to mind. And the first aspect of it is that over the years, we've had to be rapidly educated about insurance and insurance in the industry. We've shortchanged ourselves so much because of the lack of education that we all started off with in this business, especially going into the maritime ship owners business right from the beginning. I remember a couple of years ago, going out was coming to the jetty, and there was a piece of metal that was sticking out of the jetty, and as the vessel came alongside, it pierced it, and it taught understanding of that and going to court and fighting it for the liability to be captured where it actually sat, and leave it out of us as charterers back to fixed and left port after a couple of days of repair. I think a couple of weeks of repair here. But that lesson for me opened us up to the issue of why insurance and liability and capturing liability, but also in ownership of vessels. And we realized as we began to own that, I believe it was Timmy that mentioned about keeping your vessels under certain flags and keeping them within companies separately. The next time that we purchased a vessel after that, we had done that with some Greek partners that have come in. And in that response, when we purchased that vessel, we also learned that the industry is full of people who take advantage of those who do not know very well what they're getting into. Even though they were Greeks, I found that in this particular case, they were much worse than a lot of people that we need. And everything from when the vessel was purchased, to the tonnage, to the documentation and all, even though we went through it, was just full of discrepancies that cost us. And it was not a vessel that we ended up enjoying at all. But it was again another lesson which I just want to put down as we're discussing the insurance and how insurance affects you as an owner and a ship and an operator of vessels. Education is very important, and I want to thank Olisa for this webinar, because if there's one thing I want those who are attendees to take away, is that you need to have the right advice. You need to understand very much what you're going into, even before you go into the ownership of vessels. That vessel that we bought the second time was well insured, but a lot of the underlying fact, even though we had insured it because of my first experience, the purchase of the vessel in itself and the documentation and the tonnage and what it was supposedly meant to carry within our shores was not right. And so it became a lost venture because it was not what it said it would be. And I use this as an example of understanding and educating oneself about the various aspects of shipping if you want to be a ship owner. We eventually let go of that vessel. A few years later, we then went into another transaction, and this time we had learned a lot. And so when we were now building brand new vessels in the LNG space, LPG space, sorry, this time around, we built from scratch. And every single thing was documented one after another with a lot of proper information now. And so currently we operate in that LPG space 2 brand new build vessels that operate within the West African region. And insurance is critical. If the insurance was not done right, we would not, and this goes to Tenisha's point, if the insurance was not done right and the documentation of the insurance was not done right, we would not have been able to raise the finance. And so because the documentation was done properly, the insurance was pre-arranged and agreed upon, and we had all of the right details beforehand, we were able to raise the funding completely for that vessel and the operations thereof. So I want to close by pointing out and hammering that as we go through this entire webinar, that the issue of educating oneself locally by using people who operate within this environment, Dr. Akinye and Olisa Agbakoba are two such examples. Using them and understanding how to frame the agreements for which operations, ownership, and managing of vessels within our waters and going international is, unless we have that understanding, we will not be able to drive a thriving business within these waters. And so Shipowners Association, which Dr. Oyong is the president, has been driving this. The Chamber of Shipping, which is why we're doing this webinar, is driving this. It's about educating ourselves into what needs to be done such that we can create a thriving industry. And so I want to say once again, thank you, Olisa Agbakoba, for what you're doing here. The education is priceless. A lot of people who are attendees may not understand fully how important what we're doing is. But I just want to pray that they never get into a claim or have a sunken vessel before they realize how vital this discussion is. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Cool. That was really important because this is the basis of why we have this. I think it's very important that people understand that knowledge is power. And without knowledge, we just cannot afford to be mediocre. Days of mediocrity has gone from Temi Omasheye, from Captain Iheanacho, from Toyeko, and of course, the president of the ship owners. You can see that this is very important. The time they spent agreeing to be part of this. So I hope most participants understand the drive, like President of the Chamber of Shipping said, is to advocate, to give you knowledge. When we go abroad and we interact at the Chamber of Shipping in England, they all understand what they're doing. But we have a lot of people who the knowledge is not totally there. So I thank you, panelists. I thank you, every one of you, for coming and for giving us time. We are going to keep calling on you for various aspects. We probably want to try and hold this maybe on a monthly basis or bi-monthly, but we really need to start giving knowledge out there for the new Nigeria under the new normal. I'm going to call on Dr. Olisa Agbakoba to give his own practical input, which I think is, this is what actually sold the idea to the Chamber of Shipping, that yes, he's the founder of the Chamber of Shipping anyway, so whatever he says he wants to do with us, we have no choice but to do it with him. So I'm going to call on Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, our founder, president, pioneer, BOT member, all of them, to come and give us his own input. And I hope all you participants out there have written your questions, because the panelists are still here for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes to answer. Thank you, Dr. Olisa, over to you.
Thank you, Ife. Thanks very much. Good to see all of you here. I think I'll start by flagging what Dr. Oyong said about international trade. Without shipping, the world will be disconnected, because shipping is what lifts goods and services around the world, up to 95%. And like Wale said, historically, nobody would have gone into shipping. And I liked what Tonya said. The hazards of shipping are so much that Yeah, Captain Hanacho rightly referred to Hugo Brochus, the need to limit liability as a matter of public policy. And it's the one area of business that has that advantage. A bank doesn't, except CBN comes in to intervene, or NDIC. So generally, if you're a business person and you fail, you go bankrupt. So shipping has just that exception. And limitation of liability vary. P&I, the conventions that were referred to, insurance. Whatever option you choose, that is limitation. But I think the problem, as I had said earlier, is the lack of awareness on the part of Nigerian ship owners about exactly the legal opportunities that they have to protect. Like Tony said, you said that this ship came alongside and was pierced, but you have a duty. There's always a limitation. It must happen without your own fault or privity. If it happens with your fault, you are liable. So to what extent have you made sure that your ship is seaworthy? Those are all the issues that require for the prudent ship owner to seek the advice before purchase. But what happens generally is that the vessel comes in. There is no consultation with experts of any kind. So you have these problems. But I understand why these limitation laws are important. You have 150,000 ships around the world. Some of these vessels go, and I'm sure Captain Henderson knows it, they go through some of the toughest shipping lanes in the world. For instance, the Straits of Dorset is the world's busiest shipping lane. 600 vessels cross there in a tight pack on the roads, 2-mile gap between France and the English Channel. So you can imagine a captain that is not diligent, he is going to have an accident. Then look at the Straits of Malacca, another extremely dangerous. I was involved in something where, I don't know what Tony knows about this, but there's something called the heavy lift vessels. They're highly specialized vessels that move oil rigs around the world. And an oil rig was being moved by an indolent captain who had gone to Asia and lifted the 2 oil rigs. He failed to make his calculation. So going through the narrow Straits of Malacca on his way to Oman, there was a crash. And in claiming liability, the court refused it because there's also a duty to be not to be negligent. So whilst limitation is important, it is also important that the ship owner would have to make sure that the masters on board know what they're doing. So this is a highly complex field of adventure. And that's why the thing was titled, because when we were planning the webinar, some of us said, is it maritime claim? But I prefer to use the word misadventure to show the importance of the responsibility that ship owners are called upon to bear if they really want to limit their liability. I will also suggest to the president, Dr. Onyong, because I'm not sure that it was Temi or Tony or Captain. Somebody had mentioned the P&Is. But you know, P&Is, for me, foreign P&Is, I worked with a lot of them. I don't think they have your interest at all. They don't have your interest at all. Why haven't you started one? What is stopping Nigerian ship owners from starting? What is a P&I club? It's an association of ship owners. And I'm sure that Soan, Tony, Tebi, I can't see Ihanacho anymore. But all of you, don't you have the capacity to start a ship, a P&I? Don't you? Why must you run to London to do it when you are going into a territory where they will disclaim anything you bring? So these are some of the challenges. Insurance. I know that you're not insurers. I don't know how many participants are on this webinar. But I also have found marine insurance to be dodgy. The first thing a marine insurance company does is to disclaim liability. You have to go to a marine insurance lawyer to go to court and all that. So in order to deal with the three options, the first presented by Wale, the other P&I, the other marine insurance, is for ship owners to work in collaboration and ensure that pressure is put. For instance, I don't know if you know, a lot of the insurance in Nigeria now are reinsured. So a lot of the insurance companies here are simply agents. They're not insurance companies. They're agents. They've got to go to their organs abroad to say, can we pay this one? So you're back to the same problem. So whether you are taking insurance, you don't have full guarantees, because the first thing that London insurers will say to you is it where it's coming from? Nigeria. They disclaim it. P&I, they disclaim it. So I would never recommend insurance or P&I as your final unless you have it localized. And that, I think, is one of the challenges that the Chamber of Shipping tried. How can we deepen services to support ship-owning companies? Dependence on foreign insurance and P&I clubs, I'm not sure is of help to the growth of our local ship-owning companies. I'll close by requesting the ship-owning companies under SOAN to actually review the nature and extent of the concept of limitation laws that Wale referred to. Because as I said earlier, I was shocked that in 43 years, I couldn't count 5 cases. So I said, is it that they're not aware? And I remember I have also been guilty of not advising when I wasn't fully aware of this. I remember representing Maersk, and as the general vessel was discharging cargo, the crane driver was on top, and the hold was open, and there was a wave, and the band plunged in. And that would have been a very good case to plead limitation. That wasn't pleaded. So there's a lot of ignorance and a lot of need for awareness, knowledge, and the application of the right principles. Because I'm listening to Toye, I have the impression, and I'm sure that Captain Hanacho, who had said he wanted to say something, because I would like to hear more about your experiences, about how far in your cases have you actually applied or asked your counsel to apply the principles of limitation in court? Or how far have you thought about reviewing your marine insurance policies properly and seeking advice? I remember a guy who retired, and I'm closing on this, but I really felt sorry for him. He retired as a federal pump sec back in the day, and got his pension. And he was advised to go into fish shed. I'm sure you remember when fish shed was very popular. A lot of people were importing fish shed. But he didn't know he had to write a good policy. He didn't know. Unfortunately, when the hold was opened, the whole place was smelling, because in the course of the voyage, there was seepage. And the policy did not cover seepage, water seepage. So it was a total loss. And the poor old man came to see me, and it was actually Leadway Insurance. Unique. When Mr. Oviosu, the giant of marine insurance, was still the main underwriter there. I said, please, can we help this man? He said, well, that's not I can do. Had he taken proper advice? Maybe, but just look at how not seeking technical or legal advice cost this man his pension. So I would say, look at marine insurance properly, look at P&I, and is it possible to start one in Nigeria, and let the responsibility rest squarely on the current president of SOAN, that is Dr. Onyong. So I put that challenge to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agbakoba. I hope that threw some light, some practical light. I'm going to call on some panelists. Captain Iheanacho are you there, Captain? You wanted to ask, okay, you wanted to ask a question or make a comment. I will start with you, then I'll go to the participants, because there are quite a lot of questions on the chat group. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Madam Ife, for giving me the additional time to make some comments. Actually, when I indicated an interest to speak the other time, I wanted to make just one comment. But since Dr. Olisa
Can we
Agbakoba,
see you? Can you open your video, please?
video, okay, yeah. Can you see me now?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you've muted yourself. Okay, there you are. Okay. No, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay. You're okay.
All right. Yes, I was saying that when I indicated an interest to speak the other time, I wanted to speak on something that Mr. Omashe had said. But of course, when I listened to Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, as usual, he absolutely put his nail on his hand on the problem that we are facing in our industry. Talking about our requirement for indigenous P&I on the one hand, talking about a requirement for us to review marine insurance services that are given to Nigerian international traders. Let me start with the marine insurance problem that we have. We pay way too much insurance for the goods that travel in Nigeria's international trade. And the reason this is happening is that I suspect, I don't know for a fact, that there are people who benefit from creating this impression that Nigeria is a country that's infested by pirates. And so if any good or any vessel is coming to Nigeria, a premium has to be paid that is not commensurate with what's really happening on the ground. I think that this is a very good forum for us to discuss this issue. And I would like the Chamber of Shipping to take up this matter. Nigeria is not really a pirate nation like Somalia. I've heard it said one time that Nigeria was the second country next to Somalia in terms of the degree of piracy and brigandage that we see in our waters. From what I know, pirates attack a ship to steal its cargo, to steal valuables on board. If you attack a container vessel and you want to steal the contents of that container, containers in the ship, you would have to have a port where you have to take that ship to go and discharge the cargo. But if that doesn't happen, you cannot continue to say that there are pirates operating freehand outside Nigerian waters, and for which reason we are going to be paying huge amounts in insurance premium. Why is it that a container that is traveling from the UK, for instance, and going to Hong Kong, which is about 3 times the distance of, if you look at it in relation to a container traveling from the UK and coming to Nigeria, why is it that the freight rate is much cheaper when you look at a container that is going to Hong Kong as a place that is full of pirates? But in Nigeria, nobody pays any attention, nobody cares. And so once they say that there are pirates outside Nigerian waters, containers, oil products, whatever travels in our trade is absolutely hammered in terms of what we have to pay. I think it's something that I'd like the chambers to look into. On the issue of a P&I that you talked about, again, you put your finger absolutely on it, Olisa. Years ago, we started off trying to form a local P&I. We did everything that was possible. It didn't happen because the guys who are there, who are absolutely drawing a pure premium for doing nothing, made sure that we didn't have it. It's a challenge again for the administration and the people in authority to ensure that they give their support to some of these initiatives that our people suggest to them from time to time. And finally, talking about the comments from Mr. Matseye, he talked about the paradox where crews have certificates and those certificates are not good enough so that the ship can become a seaworthy vessel. Well, it's a good thing that Dr. Masha used to be the DG of the NIMASA. NIMASA is the administrator of seaworthiness in the maritime sector. NIMASA really ought to know what is a good certificate is and one that will not pass muster. But every year, NIMASA goes into this business of running into IMO, who want to be a member of the board. You want to be a member of the board, and yet your people are not on the white list. Why will anybody recognize your certificates? Why will you not have problems operating ships? So I thought that I'd drop that also in the laps of Ify and her people, so that it is something that you could actually drive in the near future. Thank you for giving me the extra time to speak.
Thank you, Captain. I think I'm going to actually ask Temi to say something. Who has a question? I think Temi was raising his hand to speak. Was it Dr. Young? Who was raising their hand to speak on the panel? Dr. Young. Okay, Dr. Young, can you please make your comment, and then Temi, you make your comment after. Thank you. Short.
Do I have the floor? Hello?
Yes, Dr. Young, go ahead.
Dr. Young, go ahead.
Yes, okay. I wanted to say that last year when I was elected president of Shipowners Association of Nigeria, my first inaugural general meeting was on the front banner was the issue of P&I. And I'm happy to say that that was a joint NISA and SWAN meeting in collaboration with NIMASA. The very first meeting we held, we discussed a possibility of getting a P&I club into Nigeria. That discussion is still ongoing, and the need has become more imperative right now with this kind of webinar. Secondly, I want to also put some experience onto bear here and corroborate what my brother Tony has said. Shipping business is a very, it's a bankruptcy-prone business if you are ignorant. That is why I have tried as much as possible to learn as much as possible, because I wasn't born a captain. The bottom line is that our members, I don't want to be specific or mention names here, our members have complained, and I have this, something that I'm trying to deal with. Pirates attacked their vessel, and they actually stole some cargo belonging to NMPC. At the end of the day, NMPC took the money from the... Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. NMPC
yes,
actually had some distraction. NMPC actually took the money from their charter fees, and up till for many years, this matter is still pending. And another issue is the fact that insurance, somebody also insured a vessel with marine insurance, Holland Machinery, with a reputable insurance company. Insurance, which case if the ship goes to dry dock for the first, let's say, 60 days, the loss of hire for that period will be paid. However, when the vessel was attacked again by pirates, and they grounded the vessel, and the vessel had to go to dry dock, insurance paid for the hull and machinery damage, but they failed to pay for the loss of hire. In other words, if there was no accident, of course, there wouldn't have been any loss of hire. But they failed to pay for the loss of hire and preferred to pay for the machinery and the whole damage, and they are still in court on that matter. So there is this information is very, very important, and we are going to take that challenge to be able to see how we can, create all these environment, go into insurance, and ensure that we, keep the knowledge going. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a comment, please.
Okay, Mr. Andy, President of the Chamber of Shipping has a comment. Okay, I didn't see. Okay. Are you live? We want to see you talking, not your picture. But we can't see you. We can only see your picture. You're sitting there posing. We want to see you talking.
Baby,
I know.
We are seeing his baby face.
The host has asked you. Okay, start. Okay, yeah. Okay, good.
That's better.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. The first comment is a question. In Nigeria, one major challenge shipping has is the problems you have on the right of way and environmental issues. You find the community people, you know, spreading their nets all over, which can cause problems to the ship and the ship owner. Problem to the ship owner in the sense that you can be attacked to make good for the damage to those items. Who pays for all this? Secondly, where you have wrecks in the waterways or problems arising from non-dredging, limitation, and there is damage, do you hold the government responsible? My worry is, at the end of the day, you may find the ship owners sitting down and worrying for all possible problems that can ever come, including the communities putting their nets, including the fact that, okay, MPA will not dredge, you know, that they will not have time to face their business. Have there been instances or situations where the regulatory authorities are made to face the music? Because I was stunned by what Mr. Tonyeko said, that his vessel, brand new vessel, got damaged right at the port, maybe from a metal protruding from the jetty, and he went through that stress. What fallback position do we have? I'd like to have an idea. Secondly, on the issue of P&I, I'd like to mention that this issue was greatly debated by the two legacy owners of the West Africa, that when we all come together as a regional or sub-regional body, we believe that if we involve the businessmen in our area, in that region, the government, all coming together, we should be able to deal with this problem by, a way of, we believe it will be attractive to partner or encourage any of the big ones, market. So, Dr. Oyong, this is an area we will talk more. Thankfully, you're a member of the committee today. We'll talk more on this. I believe your ideas and all ideas will help Nigeria come up with something to present to that body so that we can provide a template to solve this major drain, on our resources. Thank you.
Okay, to Dr. Young's comments. We know that the Chamber of Shipping has a lot of work to do with ship owners. That's why we collaborate closely. But to me, there was some specific issues that I think it was Captain Ihenacho and Andy that brought up. So I think you will answer as former DG and as a ship owner. Temi, please, can I hear what you have to say? Somebody's mic is not muted. Please, can you mute?
So just very quickly, on the issue of, let me start on the issue of war risk premium. When I became DG, I was approached by Nigerian LNG that they were concerned about the amount of money which Nigeria was paying, which was called 5 degree east. We all know what 5 degree east is. which is basically 5 degrees east of Lagos, where we have to pay the war risk premium. And in that year, the LLNG came to me and said to me that, look, Nigeria is not the war zone. Why have we been made to pay such high risk premium? I mean, it's affecting us as LNG. We're loading cargoes almost every time. The moment we enter Nigerian waters, our premium shoots up. We have to negotiate. So I said, okay, let me do an investigation into it. And well and truly, I did an investigation into it, into what JWC are doing, the Joint War Risk Committee of Lloyd's in London, what they were doing. And the reason quite simply is that Sierra Leone was under war risk premium and they came out of it. And we said, okay, we would come out of the war risk premium. But the issue about the war risk premium is that, okay, let us have a portal within Nigeria or within NIMASA where we can reinsure these risks. And we got the second, I don't know whether you guys will know the name of the guy who had the highest divorce rate in England. He agreed to join us on this, but on one condition, that he would only join us if he sees the sign off of Mr. President. Now, why did he say that? He says the war risk premium being paid on Nigeria is totaling almost between $300 to $400 million a year. And this is hard cash coming into the UK economy. And if for whatever reason this money is going to stop, it has a major impact on the British economy that even that is willing to jump on the plane and come to, and that if you take this kind of decision unilaterally, and I'm going to back you on this, to reinsure this, to cut down the war risk premium to almost nil. At that time, we're doing 0.25%. And he said, look, Temi will start and go down to 0.01 or whatever the case may be, and then begin to come down. But it will be reinsured in Nigeria. That means NIMASA would be using a platform to sell this premium of the war risk so that all the other guys will be forced to come down because they also want this. Then we begin to work on the issue of insecurity. But my brother, who is going to wake up and tell me this? Because you could take that decision, and this guy said, I'm not going to stick my neck out, because if the British Prime Minister walks into your president and the president says to him, who gave you permission to do that, and withdraws that permission from you, then I'm going to be blacklisted by JWC. So we couldn't move forward on that. That was what created that issue. Now, secondly, on the issue of, we talk about the issue of piracy. I don't believe we have piracy in Nigerian waters. I keep saying it's armed robbery at sea, as far as I'm concerned. Because they are defining Nigeria as a pirate zone. We are not a pirate zone like Somalia and the rest. As far as I'm concerned, whatever is happening in Nigerian waters is purely armed robbery at sea. These are people going on board. Yes, kidnapping is coming to it. If we look at the clear definition of what piracy is and what armed robbery at sea is, what is happening in Nigerian waters is pure armed robbery at sea. But like you said, we are not a war zone. But somebody is making money out of this system because we are not putting our acts together and begin to work on it. On the issue of certification of seafarers, the problem we have is not NIMASA's problem now. The problem is that these guys are coming with fake certificates and going to the ship owners. And the ship owners are employing them, believing that these certificates are real, and there's no system of verification. Now, when they formed this, our cabotage committee, and many of us are members of that committee, we had looked very seriously into we are going to subcommittee whereby we have said we are going to now digitalize the whole processes of certification, whereby a ship owner can see a certificate and go online onto a portal and reaffirm whether that certificate is real. Right now, NIMASA is running on analog. And what we've said to NIMASA, you have to go digital. You cannot continue the way we are and remain the way that things are going. Yes, I do agree. I mean, people think, oh, I was only DG for 18 months and I spent one year fighting for my dear life in that place. So the point I'm making quite simply is that these things are doable. Unfortunately, the committee which was set up, our committee was set up by Dakuku, we have gone quite far. We have done subcommittees. Everybody is ready to drive. We've put everything in place. Financing committee for us to raise money, how we're going to raise money, which was going to be chaired by Andy Siche, how we're going to set up a system of loan. I've even seen Yawan Sadiku. I've seen the minister, that is the NIPC, executive secretary of NIPC. I've seen the minister of trade and industry, who are willing to say, look, we are willing to give you whatever limit of guarantee we're going to give you for ship acquisition. But unfortunately, a new administration has come in, and you cannot go and make yourself you cannot go and impose yourself on them. They've been briefed on what we've done. We told them what we are. It's only for them to say, look, continue where you left off. But when you go to them, it becomes a bit personal. So it's rather, and you must understand my position quite clearly, I have to take a step back. So the point I'm making quite simply is this. Many of these issues can be dealt with. The committee, which was a stakeholders committee, which are all members of whoever is a stakeholder in maritime, is part of that committee. And we're ready to drive, but unfortunately, the agency doesn't want us to move forward so far. They've not
Temi, I agree with you, but I also believe that the private sector, we have to sit up. This thing concerns us. And this has always been my approach and the approach of the Chamber of Shipping, that if we collectively and cohesively make noise, Captain, you remember cabotage? You, Temi, were part of it. Dr. Agbakoba, you fought tooth and nail. We made so much noise about cabotage that Obasanjo had to listen. So I believe it's time we all did that, but knowledge is important first. Now, I don't know, I think I want to go to the participants who have a lot of questions. And I don't think, we can't take all of them, but I can read some out to you. For example, somebody from Captain Ola Olubowale, he said that this is to everybody. How do we cascade this learning and insight from the webinar to the maritime space to enlighten people? Captain, join the Chamber of Shipping, get involved. We need you all back on board. The Chamber was sleeping for a while, but it's awake, and we are going to go back into the territory and start giving out information. Information is power. There are other questions which I will take as many as I can. Some of them are for any panelist, and some of them are directed at each person. This one is a comment. It's by way of comment. It's from Adedoyin Afun. He says, your comment on P&I clubs issue blue cards and not just the UK P&I blue card. I think what he means is that they issue blue cards to everybody. Is that what you mean? I believe that he said all P&I clubs issue blue cards and not just the UK P&I club. So there are many other P&I clubs that exist.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's what he's saying. Somebody has mentioned, you've already spoken about it, that NIMASA should be here. Yes, we would like NIMASA, but we thought we'd talk on our own first of all, before we bring in agencies. By the time we have analyzed what's come out of this, like a brief assessment, we will now start involving. This is all part of the advocacy process. We have to go armed with information. So thank you for that comment. There's Folake Akimo Ladu. Yeah, her question is to you, Temi. She says, how can banks be convinced on the rewards of investing in shipping so that there is more long-term investment in the shipping industry? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, basically, let us tell ourselves something.
But please, 5 minutes, please.
Yes,
just 3 minutes, in fact.
It will be shorter than that. The bottom line, quite simply, is that Nigerian banks do not have the capacity to fund shipping industry. And secondly, with all the hula bula we are making about the noise about cabotage fund, the money is not enough to do anything in the industry. But I always believe that we use what you have to get what you want. Very simply, quite simply, I believe that, and I've always advocated for this, quite simply, we can use our Nigerian Stock Exchange to raise money. I've discussed with Oscar Onyema. Oscar is very keen on this. Because, first of all, we have the cargo. We own the cargoes, for crying out loud. The cargoes belong to us. I always keep saying, we did a calculation on the amount of, just on the issue, and I'm sure Tonya will know what is going on this, just on the issue of DSDP. If you calculate the 450,000 barrels a day they take out, and the 1.5 million tons of petroleum product they import per month, the freight rate alone on those cargoes in the region of between $2.8 to $3 billion a year alone. That's on the freight element alone. So, and I'm not talking about our Nigerian crude export. I'm just talking about the one we use to take out and bring in petroleum products. So the point I'm making, and then and aside from that, just from the STS operation and bringing cargo into Nigerian waters, alone that is over $1 billion or $1.5 billion business per annum. 95% to 98% of that money leaves this country. So there is
that convincing the Nigerian bank? The question is, how do we convince
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The point, Nigerian banks does not have the capital wherewithal to do this. So we need to look at other sources of financing. Now, what does that mean? What that means, we can begin to look at the Exim banks. How can we use the Exim banks to fund 85% of our funding and then use 15% of whatever we have, whether be it cabotage or whatever, or be it an IPO we raise in the capital market to fund the 15% so that we can get 85% using the Exim banks of this country, like South Korea, Japan, whatever, build a vessel for us and we use our own 15% as equity contribution. But that can only be done under the umbrella of a NIPC, stock exchange, whatever, because they want to see some level of transparency in the whole system.
So it's not really convincing banks, it's getting a system that would work. Well, unfortunately, probably we'll have another forum for that kind of for that question, because it's a big one. Mr. Chidi Logo, I think he's of the Maritime Law Association. He's the president, yes. He wants Dr. Akinyedolu Wole to address the issue of limitation fund under Admiralty Jurisdiction Act and AJ procedure rules, which is quite of concern to ship owners. So can you answer that, Wole, in 2 seconds? We have so many questions. Wole, can you answer that question, please?
Yes, so the AJ and the AJP actually provide for limitation of liability, expressly make provisions for shipowners limiting their liability. Under the provisions of the AJA, precisely Section 9, the liability limitation can actually be seen as a two-edged sword. It can be so a shipowner can actually limit preemptively, and it can also limit defensively. Suffice to say that if a claim has been brought against a shipowner can actually raise liability limitation as a defense. Likewise, if a shipowner believes that certain claims will be brought as an against him, it can also commence limitation proceedings preemptively and be saying that certain claims are going to as an arise from a wrongdoing. Now, what any shipowner should concern himself with is whether it's possible for limitation liability to be broken, which is a possibility under the 1957 Brussels Convention, as I mentioned earlier. In countries that still subscribe to that convention, that have not moved on to the 1976 LLMC, it is easy to break the shipowner's liability cover. However, Nigeria is subscribed to the 1976 LLMC, which is actually very difficult to break. So we found out that in Nigeria, a shipowner would have to concern himself with whether he falls within the ambit that the wrongdoing can be categorized as having been committed recklessly and with the intent to cause the harm. Now, what are the going forward? What are the things that a shipowner would have to be concerned with? Mr. Marshall mentioned something earlier about what would happen if a shipowner employs some crew members that actually present fake certificates. Well, it is possible that a shipowner under the Brussels Convention could be held liable for that, because now it's, for instance, for oil pollution, it's strict liability. So under the Brussels Convention, it's possible that the shipowner could be held liable for actually employing crew members that present fake certificates and could lose that ability to limit its liability. However, for the 1976 LLMC, it would have to be shown that the shipowner was very much.
Yeah, we have to wind down. I think yes, it was a straight question that you could have just round it up quickly.
So basically,
please.
That is the answer. The answer is that under the AJA and the AJPL, it is possible for shipowners to limit their liability preemptively, and summary of my answer to the United SAN's question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a contribution here by Captain Labinjo. It's nice to see you and hear from you again, Captain Labinjo. Done. Okay. Captain Labinjo wants to make a contribution. He also was at the onset of the Chamber of Shipping. He also was a member of the Indigenous Shipowners Association. His contribution is about why the need to limit liability by the ship owners. He says he can identify 3 major reasons, namely A, sea perils, B, events of human error, C, pollution from hydrocarbons. He says this is why you need insurance to pick the cost. The requirement for ship owners to contribute to the claims is the raison d'etre for the need to limit liability of the ship owners. From Captain Labinjo. This is a contribution, and I think all the areas he mentioned were kind of touched briefly. Thank you, Captain, for that contribution. And then we have on the question of P&I Club, there was a mention here by Adedoyin Afun. He says African P&I or Nigeria P&I need not to be set up in Nigeria to service Nigerian ship owners. Consulting the relevant professionals would help in this required regard. Adedoyin Afu, Bloomfield Law Practice. Is this noted by everyone? It's a good comment. I believe it's something that should be looked into. So I'm going on to Foluke. I want to talk to Foluke. She says Nigerian can hold and should start a P&I club, which can later be extended to Africa. This may become inevitable, particularly in the light of ACFA. ACFA, as far as I am concerned, is African cargo to be carried by Africans. So Nigeria needs to blaze the trail. It's important. I don't know if ACFA has a maritime entity in that whole setup. Does anybody know that? If there's anything, it's under transportation, but I don't know if maritime is singled out there. This is a question by Kayode Lucy. He says, while commenting on the need for indigenous P&I, please can you comment on the need for indigenous classification societies in Nigeria/Africa? Please, is there any platform for mentoring intending stakeholders in the shipping industry in Nigeria? What is the current ship owners' position on implementing IMO 2020 global sulfur cap? I wish Nishmasa was here too. Well, these are questions, but I think the only one that really is relevant for this platform today, apart from the mentoring, the Chamber of Shipping can help you in that area. We can put you in touch with all these big members, but is commenting on the P&I, please, is there also any thought of indigenous classification societies in Nigeria? Actually, I'm surprised. What happens? Classification is international. It's Lloyd's, so it has to be Lloyd's. Can it be localized in collaboration with maybe an international entity, maybe Lloyd's? Another question for Dr. Akinye from, sir, who wants to speak?
Let me just ask quickly on the issue of classification society. Okay, yes. What happens is that many of the vessel management companies are sitting in foreign countries. So you have vessel management companies in Dubai, in Mumbai, in Dubai, and all these other countries. So what they do, because they are your management company, they have to use the IACS certificates. That means the document of compliance, the DOCs issued to them by those countries. So what happens now is that those countries, like in Mumbai, I had a problem with my vessel management company, would have to now, like in Lloyd's in Dubai, they will go to Lloyd's Dubai using their DOC, then the Lloyd's Dubai will send a message to Lloyd's Nigeria. But Lloyd's Nigeria does not talk to us, the ship owner, directly, but they speak to Lloyd's Dubai again. So whatever money we pay, we don't pay to Lloyd's Nigeria. We pay to Lloyd's Dubai. So what needs to happen is that the document of compliance for ship managers, and we have not even looked at that, needs to be domesticated here and issued by NIMASA. That is the aspect I have to cover with the issue of IACS certification. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry I have to rush you. There's just one last question, and I think it's for the president of the Chamber of Shipping. Are you there, Mr. Isichie? Andy?
Yes, I am.
Are you there? The question says, I heard it's from Olusegun, and he says, I heard the president mention a collaboration with a university in the UK for the training of manpower. I would like to know if they are doing anything with man or run yet. I think an effort in that direction would be highly appreciated. Just a quick one, and then I can round up and thank everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we have signed, and it is our intention to engage the management of Man Oron to be part of it. We are also talking to MPA seriously to use some of their infrastructures in Lagos for the training, because they have a lot of simulation equipment. So the answer to your question is yes. Then quickly, let me deal with the point the former DG of the NIMASA raised about the committee. The Nigerian Chamber of Shipping intends to engage the management of NIMASA on a couple of issues. The importance of that committee and the work they are doing will be brought up again, and will make him realize that it is important for the industry, and it is important for the development of shipping in Nigeria. Lastly, for the benefit of all of us, as the coordinator of this event, Ms. Akreli said, this is the first in the series of our advocacy engagements. We'll do a lot more with Olisa Agbakoba Associates. We'll do a lot more with various stakeholder groups in the industry, terminal operators, and so on and so forth. Welders Association, just to ensure that contemporary issues, problems are addressed. We get to know the concerns and problems in the industry. We'll filter them and engage the relevant government agencies to ensure that there is change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, everyone. I want to say a hearty thank you to everyone who participated. We had over, how many people took part? We had over 100 participants. This is a real wow for us. We thought we'd get only about 30, 50 people. So obviously knowledge is still out there. There's still the need for knowledge. I'm going to go to each person, and this is how I round up my own webinars. You just wave, please, so that they'll know you're aware. I'm going to start on the left with Mr. Temi Omasheye. Thank you very much. Can you all wave? Thank you, Tonya. Tonya, let me see your hand. I want to know if you're alive. Dr. Wale, are you there? Captain, are you there? Can you lift your hands? Because some of you just put your pictures. I see Dr. Onyong has gone. Dr. Agbakoba, can I say, oh, he's saluting the ahoy. Captain has put his picture. He's not there. Can you see? Anyway, thank you, everybody. This is just the beginning. There's so many questions here that I'm going to sit down with the president of the Chamber of Shipping and the Chamber, and we will put together new webinars on all the topics. You will get a link for this webinar so that you can listen to it again. And then the paper, those who missed the paper will also, if you want it, just ask for it and we will send you. You will get a link so that you can go back and visit this whole program again. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It is a great honor to host great minds like this. I'm learning as well. Thank you once again, and goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you.